Okay, so once again, you'll laugh at this one. It is another natural progression from the previous combination. So rather than adding to what we've done before, we're going to stay within the framework of that. But now we're going to work on a 3-punch combination. Now, the most commonly thrown 3-punch combination will probably be the double jab cross. But in this instance, we're going to work on the jab cross hook. We're looking at alternate hands. So this will teach us to move in the opposite direction. So after the jab, the cross, and the hook, we're back in our stance. We're back in our stance. Nice heavy footed, weight evenly distributed. I need to drop inside of the opponent's right hand, roll across, and move around. Notice how my body pivots as I go round. That positional adjustment is important. So it's the jab, the cross, the hook. When I get to that point, I drop round and I turn. Now I'm in a position to throw more punches. I've adjusted to the opponent now. Again, the easiest way to figure this out in your mind is to remember that if you've just thrown a left hand, the most likely counter punch or follow-up punch will be a right hand. If you've just thrown a right hand, the most likely counter punch will be a left hand. That's not to say they are the only options, but the reality of boxing is that there are certain patterns that you'll recognize again and again and again. And if 9 times out of 10, one thing is the most likely thing to happen, then you need to practice that one thing or dealing with that one thing again and again and again until that becomes easy. And then look at the alternatives, look at the other things that may happen. Okay, so when I'm in my boxing stance, it's jab, cross, hook, look at that balance, look at that weight distribution, non-punching hand height, chin tucked, lead shoulders protecting me, wrist is arced in. I finish the punch in line with the target rather than flapping my arm around here. Finish in line with the target. When I get there, I drop, I roll round, and I bring my hands back into position, ready to work. Right now, don't burden the legs too heavily. So when I finish that punch, I don't want to go and do a big squat. Again, I hinge at the hips, my knees soften, hips over heels, knees over toes. I come round and I'm back in position. If you haven't seen it yet, get yourself my other instruction on dynamic striking, which is upgrading your defensive skill set. I take you through this. I take you through the rolling, the slipping, all of these movements. If you understand them better, then you can apply them better into this kind of situation. So these sort of drills will only be improved by a deeper understanding of how you need to move. The biomechanics of it, the fundamental basics of your movement have always been the same in boxing, okay? There's a lot of new kind of fandangled rubbish coming into boxing now, but nobody in boxing now is better than they were 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Boxing hasn't evolved with regards to a skill set. All we're seeing now is perhaps slightly more physically appealing fighters with regards to their body shape. Certainly not better skilled, certainly not tougher, certainly not fitter. So the key thing is to focus on those absolute fundamentals that just haven't changed, right? You can then put your imprint on them. You can learn how to do them in the way that suits your style and will become easier for you, and that will help you to develop some kind of significant uniqueness. But either way, the initial out from the outset is exactly the same thing. We offset the weight at the hips, we hinge at the hips, the knees are soft, the chin stays tucked, we look at the tops of our eyes, non-punching hand high as much as possible, stay nice and wide stance. And you can, you really can't go wrong, guys. So stick with them basics and practice these kind of drills on repeat. The same as the previous one. Do it for 3-4 minutes and then try and do it with a little bit of movement in between.